I don't wanna be anything that I don't wanna do. Is it keeping my peace of mind?
You have that's a banger actually.
It really is. Okay. Should we both smoke? Yeah. I have my like little naked. She's like a naked black woman named Ursula.
Oh.
You can't really see it because I'm in California and no one. But look, you can see her little hole. This is what I smoke out of. I
Oh
showed
my
you
God, out
this.
of her vagina?
Yeah.
Where did you buy this?
In Key West, Florida. Shout out to
Oh
Key West,
wow.
Florida, the place of drunkenness and cartel drugs. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
all the like white daddies who are like flying keys from Texas to Florida or like whatever, Mexico to Florida, they all live in Key West now. They're like, let's just retire here just in case they have to get away from America
Oh
via Diddy
yeah.
boat.
I feel like Key West in Florida is like America adjacent.
So is New Orleans. Oh yeah. So do you smoke every morning?
Um, Not every morning, but often.
I feel
I've
that.
been using my bong a lot lately.
You're giving high school vibes. So here's the scene, y'all. It's like there's packages behind you that look like keys of cocaine. You have this like orange bong and your like hair is like gorgeously dreaded. You literally look like you're in Jamaica rosting out. And the schemes are like red and yellow. Like it's like
So these are my kilos.
yeah.
My drug is colorful paper.
Actually, I have a drug that's not even a drug. It's Capri Suns. That's my drug.
Well, drugs aren't drugs. Drugs can
Yeah,
be anything.
that's true. We can be addicted to all types of things. I'm addicted to Capri Suns and love making.
Yeah, those are drugs. I mean,
They
now
are
that
drugs.
we're here defining drugs, but I definitely want to say that I don't want to say that drugs are just substances.
No, no. I think racism is a drug.
Oh, totally.
Ooh, I think that was really deep.
Yeah, to be addicted to othering another person, I mean, people don't want to break up with it. I'm like, oh, that's a drug for you.
Yeah, right? Like, you know, those white ladies, they have the view and their
Mm-hmm.
racism, and that's all they have.
Let's introduce ourselves.
Go
Okay,
first, you love.
cool. Hey, what's up? My name is Amelian, better known as my K name is Amelie Mill. Now I am Hood Marie Kondo on the interwebs. I have made a quantum leap into a whole different internet persona. My pronouns are she, her, they, them, and my drug adjectives today are, I guess I'm not on this drug right now, but I feel it and I miss it, but I do feel very psilocybin-y, that space of like kind of like dysphoric relaxation that I think that I get from mushrooms. So
Mm,
yeah, but
mm.
I'm chilling. That's my adjective. I'm chilling. How are you? So
I
introduce
love
yourself.
that. I'm Justice served. And also my K name is Lemon Pepper Steppa, but I want to go by Capri's Sun
Mhm.
just because I love the costume. And now I'm like, I could probably make this a brand. My pronouns are he and him. And I don't know, I'm with you. I'm feeling very shroomy. It's like 10:30 out here, but it's still gray. And I feel very enlightened already. Like very like the sun's already out to play. So I would be feeling, and I'm normally microdosing on shrooms. So I feel already very shroomy. It's already within me.
Mhm.
Yeah. Our topic today is drugs.
What are drugs? I think we kind of talked about it already.
I feel like we should put on one of those YouTube videos that go, drugs are, and then they're like, it's like some cartoon that's like talking about drugs are very bad for you. They take up, and then someone interrupts and goes, no! And you just start saying, I love drugs. I love drugs.
Oh God.
There's so many choices.
There's so many drugs. There
Um,
are.
yeah, how would you define it?
I think drugs are something that fill a hole. And I don't think that they have to be substances. I think substance is a type of drug, but I think behaviors, codependency, things that other people to help fill in or make somebody else feel wholeness within themselves, whether it's like sexual, whether it's class based. I think wealth is a drug. I think ego is a drug. So I think,
Ooh.
yeah, I
Oof.
think war is a drug too.
Yeah.
And like
I think
violence is a
you're
drug.
right. I think you're right on the vastness on drugs. You know, I think you can literally list about anything that's tangible. Actually, and not tangible, because religion is a drug to people too. Say it ain't so. I go to church every week, and I know people is addicted to Jesus. It ain't a bad thing, but it just what is what it is. It could be,
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah.
I was just talking to a friend about the children of Jehovah's Witnesses, because I've had friends who are friends with who have parents who are Jehovah's Witnesses, and the violence of that space, because you kind of your that family member essentially just becomes somebody completely different and chooses the you know the religion over their family,
Mm,
and you kind of have a zombie of a parent. You have
mm,
like you
mm.
have a body of a parent, but you're the parent and the person is vacant.
I think, and I'm not afraid to admit this, is drugs can do that too. They can take a person. They can do, it's a spectrum, right? It's like they're drugs that can literally bring you closer into the world and like seeing it very clearly and consciously. And then they're drugs that can take you totally out of the world, not just like killing you, but like spiritually and physically out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, they take you places. Substances specifically as a type of drug, but the drug is, oh, I want to be disassociated or somewhere else or alter my current experience in a way. Like even Starbucks is a drug, you know?
oh God, my mom probably has like, oh God, I hope she doesn't listen to this. She probably has at least $100,000 of Starbucks. Like I guarantee you she could have paid like 2 college tuitions and probably bought a house with Starbucks. My childhood memories are built on the morning Starbucks runs to school. When was the first time you like learned like about drugs? Like what was the first drug you were like, oh that's a drug?
Maybe it was like smelling my dad smoking weed. I'd be like in bed in my room, be like, well, I know what that is. I
How old were you?
was probably like 8 or 9. It would always be really late at night while he was cleaning his gun or something.
Wait, paint us a picture of that. Your
So my
dad cleaning his gun.
my dad will always cleans his guns because it's like safer, but he would do it at night, like when we were all sleeping. He'd be up watching TV. And my dad was always kind of like an insomniac, I feel like, when I was young. But he would always be on the couch,
Mm,
and it'd be kind of like his own, like he'd have the TV on, he'd be on the couch. I'd wake up and he'd be on the couch.
yeah.
Like, but he'd be cleaning his gun. Sometimes you smell some of the devil's lettuce. So I think without anybody telling me it was that was what it was. I knew. What about you?
Um, I mean, okay, so I have divorced parents, so I had two different drug experiences. My mom loved drugs, like not like obviously drugs, but like over the counter. Like when I was sick, she was too quick to be like, Robitussin, and make you feel better, which is like the early kids lean. you know, like she would just be like, Webtestin, take this, take this, take this. So at a very young age, she was like, and then I was like taking it, and she was like, you need something, you know, and that's what my introduction to drugs was from my mom's side. But then my dad and my mom had like this joint thing where they both tell me a drug horror story, like at a very young age before I understood it, you know? Like my dad would be like, so there's this dude who had a lazy eye, and he was sitting in front of the store, and I would always go up there and he'd say, John, you know, you want some of my weed? You want to smoke with me? And apparently the dude, like, he like tried to smoke with my dad, and my dad was like, no, I don't want any weed. Because the rumor was his eye went lazy from smoking weed. That's not true at all. But that's what my dad told me. And so back then I'd be like, oh, I don't want my lazy eyes to come in, so I can't smoke any weed.
Wow.
So, yeah, I was young. And it kept me from drugs for so long, all the horror stories, you know?
So you learned about the over-the-counter from your mom, and then you learned about the street stuff more from your dad.
Yeah. But I mean, did you ever have like folks in your family who are like there's always that one person who did a drug, and then suddenly they became like the no for drugs for your family?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like everyone has like a cousin or an auntie, or like, you know, I have an uncle who wrote plays, and then one time he had some of the Kool-Aid, which they also define as like acid.
Oh, like a so for real, that when they were talking about the Kool-Aid, it was acid?
Yeah, they're like,
dang,
you know, and your great cousin or uncle, I think he's a cousin, but they're like, he had a sip of that Kool-Aid and he was so talented, but then he lost his talent to the Kool-Aid. Now he's in a home. And I'm like, Kool-Aid? So if I just drink Kool-Aid?
Why did they just say the name of it? I swear it's so weird the way that we learn about things through these code words and like not really knowing like what the thing is. Yeah. But it was acid?
I mean, I feel like it was acid.
Or was it crack?
Well, my Uncle Tony ended up telling me that he thinks that someone roofied him with something, but it wasn't told like that. It was just told as like this one-sidedness, you know, about drugs. It's like when you're a kid, I don't know if you had this, but like the biggest understanding of me and drugs is being called the drug character. Like, I'll be honest, y'all, I was called a crackhead so many times as a little person. I did not know what a crack baby. And I would be like, I'm not a crack baby. I'm not a crackhead, because I was skinny and black. And that really fucked me up. But I didn't know what it meant to be a crack head or baby until I watched the beginning of Boys in the Hood.
The irony, though.
The irony, when I saw the baby, a quote unquote says like, that's what a crack baby is. Or even if you think about it, like the movies about drugs, you know, I can't remember what that movie is, but it's like Samuel Jackson playing a crackhead. I think it's like Jungle Fever, maybe.
Look here, babe, bro. I'm a little light right now. Could you like let me hold some change?
No, Gator, no. The dancing shit ain't gonna work. I ain't giving you a red cent.
What? Come on, you could do me this one solid. What? Would you rather I go out and rob some elderly person? Steal? Well, either way, I'm gonna get high. But I really hate having to resort to knocking elderly people in the head for their money. But I'll do it. You know I'll do it. Yeah, you know I'll do it. I like getting high. I'm a crackhead. Ow. I like to get high. I'm a crackhead. My brother. Yeah. Yo, Vil.
We're not doing this anymore.
Come on, let's go. Hit me over there.
That's it, Gator. That's it.
Come on,
I hate this terminology with crack and people using crackhead, calling you a crack baby, calling you a crackhead. That's fucked up. And I'm really sorry you went through that.
Thank you.
That's really fucked up. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry you went through that. And I think a lot about how a lot of people use that terminology. I think crackhead and ghetto are being used in a way that is like not cool. But I just think we should stop using that term. I feel like along with like the F word and other words like crackhead, calling people crackhead, crack baby, cracks, using crack in that way is like, I think we should stop that.
Well, also, if you think about if you think about drugs, the only fucking term, with the exception of like pothead, that feels like more of something that was created by white people, I think is crackhead. Like crackhead, crack baby were like the terms that Reagan were like, so we're looking for a crackhead. When we're thinking about the war on drugs, we're looking for crackheads. We're looking for Black people. We're looking for Black children. Like, I feel like it was synonymous with like a whole entire race. It wasn't even about the drug use, you know? That feels very like attacking. And then Black people were like, oh, let's make fun of it. Kind of like when we hear nigga, they're like, well, instead of making like nigger a bad way, we're just gonna make it like a joke and a pun.
Right.
Which is, I kind of am tired of that comedy, that like trauma comedy. It's annoying, you know?
Yeah, I'm sick of that trauma comedy too. I mean, you brought up that point in the last podcast about how using grief is used as a space in comedy. The way we talk to each other and about each other and at each other, and it's almost like a drug in itself. Maybe.
Yeah. Honestly, the way that we're moving towards, if you think about all the efforts that were put into like disparaging and making people feel bad about drugs, and then society going against drugs, we literally have a whole economy that's based off of like the drug industry. And it's not like, it's like kind of like a preference to it. It's like, we could have made a shit ton of money from like marijuana as like a whole entire nation, and then been like, all right, great, we're gonna have healthcare. Like, here's what we're gonna do with that, or like whatever the drug was. But now there's this whole industry, and that's been around, you know, I guess I would say for all a while, but I'm just now hearing like, when we talk about drugs that are psychologically being used, there's like a vast amount of things you could just take, you know? But I feel like it doesn't make sense it's like they wanted us to go in such an unnatural way where they're like, yeah, you need this, this, and that, when there's already all this other shit that's like from Earth, you know, white folks, they're like, we don't want to play with what grows in dirt. We want to make our own shit. Anyways, I feel like those type of things just show that we have all been swayed into this storyline and this like experience of drugs that has been manufactured, and it's not real.
Yeah. I mean, they were brought here to manipulate us and disarm us and to destroy us. I think there's a difference between drugs and medicine. And I think that a lot of what we're experiencing within the drug space, as far as what we're exposed to or even allowed to have access to legally, because that's a whole other space of contention right there. Alcohol is one of the worst substances, I think, in the world, to be honest. And I think that because it is so legal, it's so okay it's so approved by the white man, because that is their elixir. It's on every corner. You can buy it anywhere. You can buy it in the grocery store. And it's one of the most inebriating substances to a certain degree. Like, you could DUI, you can kill somebody. Like, I was actually just spiraling on Mel Gibson's.
Hey, don't throw Mel Brooks under the bus.
I corrected myself, but I was just looking at his DUI arrest, and I did a TikTok video. He had a whole bottle of Cazadores, and he was taken to the head. Like, he was drinking straight tequila on the PCH. That's wild.
That's a movie. You know what they say? He's got the passion of the Christ.
He does. I mean, he's a demon, actually, but that's a whole different podcast. Yeah, alcohol is crazy. And we can access it because the white man said so, and they can collect tax on it.
Yeah. My big issue right now, like my hugest issue for anybody listening out there, it is not fucking cool. It is not sexy to drink and drive. It is just not. I don't know what it might be the only thing that Oprah and all those white people who say it's not cool are saying right, because it is just not. Like, I've been in the car in the last 3 months with some people I thought were fucking so dope and so cool. And then they were drinking an excess amount, not even the amount that you would even consider like I would consider these amounts tipsy, not drunk. But their personality when they were driving was just like, would I die for you? You know what I mean? Like their personality is very much like, oh yeah, we're gonna do whatever speed we want because we are riding and dying together. And I'm like, hold up now. Like, slow down. Like, your live fast, die young personality doesn't even work for me. And I have suicidal thoughts. You know? And I don't get it. And people who are like, oh, well, I'm not drunk, like, show me the receipts. When you say I'm not drunk, show me the receipts. Because that's like the one thing a drunk person says. That's when you say you're not addicted to drugs, but you're like, only someone who didn't even accuse you of being addicted to drugs, you just saying it, oh, I'm not addicted to drugs. Ain't nobody asked you. We can tell. You know, like, not to say like there's anything wrong with whatever you're addicted to in certain aspects, but I'm saying like just don't lie. Like, just be, you know what I mean? Like, just say, hey, I'm a little drunk. Great. Let me take my ass home in an Uber. Anyways, I had to just go on that tangent.
Yeah, I remember that story. That seemed like really horrifying.
Yeah, it's scary.
It's so scary. I mean, think about all the scary stuff that we've experienced with somebody who had too much alcohol, which you could buy at the grocery store, which you could buy anywhere, which, like, how many times has anyone feared for their life involving alcohol, yet it's legal, and then I can't get my damn psilocybin without it being a federal crime?
Listen now, if I could trade a beer for ADHD medication or antidepressants for the rest of my life, I would do it in a hot second.
Yeah. I'll trade out alcohol for a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah, for real. No, I feel you. If I had to make if something really had to go, like, it would be alcohol.
I don't know if I'm like being historically correct, but like, isn't it kind of true that like Native Americans were like at first making like elixirs that would, I guess you could say, get you tipsy or make you like have hallucinations? But then I feel like there's a point in time, because history is like telling us like, oh, Native Americans are drunks, when like their alcohol was changed by early white Americans, and it literally like had sort of intellectually, I don't want to even say intellectually, but it had destroyed that community. You know, that was like the first, I think there was a first big thing on how alcohol destroys the community. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, yeah, the alcohol was introduced into the indigenous communities, to disarm them and destroy them. And I mean, it's still a space of like heavy retribution in this current time. In Alaska, in the villages, they're all dry. It's illegal to have alcohol up there. So people are still, like, 2022 bootlegging because it's totally illegal, because of how deep that, you know, relationship is like so hard space. So it's just still such a space of harm in the community to this day. So yeah, I mean, when I was growing up, people were drinking mouthwash, like people who are displaced or indigenous people who are out in the street. That's also another thing that people do up in northern Alaska. From what I've heard people drinking like whatever type of alcohol thing that you can get. I've seen some, and look, Alaska's alcohol central. I don't want to call people alcoholics and define them by what they are. This one time, I'll tell you this one story. So when I was, and mind you, I'm not even just putting this on Indigenous people, I'm putting this on like the culture up there, especially white folks.
Facts.
So, but you see, there's these restrictions that are put on Indigenous people, but not on white folks. Mind you, I'm just out of college. I was working for a tourism company that would take people on these cruises. I would work in the part where they would come off the airplane and help them find their luggage and get them on the bus. That was my summer job. And I worked with this one white girl, and the way that she drank, it was so crazy. I had never seen anybody drink like this in my whole life. And she would show up so drunk at the airport and still have her job and still do her thing. But she would talk about how she just like killed a whole bottle of like Stoli Shania, stuff like that. But this was when bird flu was around. So this is really where so this pandemic reminds me of that time, because I remember that there was this period. This is when I think this was like 2000. I started going to college. I started college 2003. So this was like the summer of 2003. I think it was like bird flu. And we had hand sanitizer everywhere. And because of the bird flu or something, you know? And I swear to God, she came to work and she was like hungover and she was like, "Can I drink that? That's alcohol in it, right?" And proceeds to start to put her head underneath the hand sanitizer station to drink it. And I was like, "Girl, no."
Wow.
I don't remember, what's her name? Haley? I don't remember. It's like Haley's.
Yo, we need to say a prayer for that, Haley. And who knows what happened during COVID? Oh God.
I had never seen anything at that level.
I wish you could find her on Facebook.
Oh no, she's blocked.
Yeah, but then we could see like a really bad photo of Haley. You know what's crazy? White people in their drunkenness are like, I think it's their blackness. Okay, hear me out. You know, like how we're real people, like constantly. Black people are real people, constant. White people have like this inner, I want to be free with my whiteness energy that only comes out when they're drunk. And like it's their version of what their idea of their own blackness is, their own beauty and their own like on beat rhythm. Like I've never seen a more passionate person than a white man or a white woman when they are fucked up.
Oh, Passions of the Christ. For real. No, for real. I'm like, oh, some little, like, you're loose now. Like, you're loose. And like, we see in it, I'm like, I'm hearing way too much and it's messy. Like, I'm talking about messy.
It's messy.
Like,
it's messy.
It's kind of like, I think though, with blackness, like, we can be that for the most part. Like, we kind of like have this thing where you're kind of like, eh.
Without alcohol, without drugs.
You know? Yeah, without it. But I agree because, man, white wine.
Box wine.
Hey,
but I'm not dissing.
I'm not mad at box wine.
No, I'm not mad.
No,
you know what I'm mad at? I know what I'm mad at. I got it right now. Listen. If we think about beer, okay? These fucking commercials, these Budweisers, shout out to Budweiser. What the fuck?
Don't shut out Budweiser. Don't shut out.
I'm shouting out Budweiser because I want them to listen. Ain't nobody care about your commercials and your horse and about being a part of America's by drinking your brown ass piss liquor.
I used to work for them.
Oh God.
Guess who else I used to work for?
Who?
Marlboro.
Oh Lord. Of course you did, Marlboro man.
Oh, I have deep regret about it. Like I have like a lot of regret about it. I was doing it in college and they were recruiting brown kids, brown young people for these marketing schemes.
Oh my God.
Say I was one of them. I mean, I think I was making at least like $15 or $20 an hour, maybe more than $20 an hour.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh wow, I could work 15 hours and I'm cool. I could pay my rent, you know, because back then rent in Vegas was like $600 or something, you know,
Yeah.
like for a 2-bedroom apartment or something ridiculous like in that
Yeah.
time. Oh my God, it was crazy. So I didn't even mean to work for Budweiser. Every city has a distributor, right? So my friend was working at doing the advertising and he was like, hey, we have some openings, send your resume because like, you know, maybe you can get a job here. And he was a brother too. So I was like, all right, cool. And send my resume in. Then they asked me for a photograph and I'm like, you know, I'm like, why would you need my picture? I've never ever, this was, you know, I've never got asked to send my picture for a job. Get the job. Anyways, I get called for an interview. I kid you not. This place does not open anymore, but it was at this bar that used to be across the convention center where their thing every hour was to throw toilet paper in the air. So you make this stuff up. So you're in the bar and it's kind of given tiki inside. Like there's even like some like tiki roofy things inside. And I'm meeting this woman. Her name is, I'm not going to say her name, but she was kind of a devil. She was Korean, but she was adopted. She was from Wisconsin. So she was like Korean and she was like, talk like she was from Wisconsin. It was kind of trippy. Pretty much I was like, I'm in the bar. There's all this toilet paper flying all over the place. I was like, okay. So we were supposed to just go around plain clothes and talk to people and get them to drink more Budweiser. And we were supposed to just look like naturally, that is what we drank. So everybody was like, had a personality. Like there was a comedian, there's an actor, and we were just going through all these bars and just straight up making people, especially like white folks were like, yeah. I'm like, oh, do you want another one? And we'd have an open bar tab and it was through USM&P, which they're a bunch of devils too. So we'd have an open tab and we'd be like, those people like turn the place into Coyote Ugly and leave, you know, all over town.
On top of the bar.
On top of the bar. And then they had another product called Jekyll and Hyde. So we were testing out their new products on people. So we're pretty much like getting people to try stuff, getting people to drink stuff, and then getting humans to be guinea pigs for like free alcohol and stuff like that.
You're
But
like a real life influencer.
In the worst way. I have a lot of guilt about it. And we were allowed to expense out our cab rides if we were too drunk. We would go to trainings in St. Louis. Like I went to the Budweiser plant.
When's the book coming out?
It's so scary. Like the energy, they have a Clydesdale I feel bad for the Clydesdale. They have a horse that they put the horse, it's like in a cage and people like look at it.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
It's fucked up. It's weird energy. Oh, no. And then you can't not drink anything outside of Budweiser. It's like a fucking cult. Like the whole city, it's like weird. It was like so weird. I got caught not drinking Budweiser and my boss called me from Vegas. It was like, I swear to God. She was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Put it down. My BlackBerry. She was like, my BlackBerry is ringing off the hook right now because you're not drinking Budweiser.
You're like, I'm drinking Corona.
A vodka something.
Oh yeah, no, that's a no. You're over there for Budweiser. It's funny how like beer is like innocent, but like I think beer is really, really bad. And I think the only thing that I would define as like worse than beer to me, and I say this in my personal life, is like the tequilas, but like the bad tequilas, not like the good tequilas. You know what I'm talking about? Like the Jose Cuervo. Our tequila makes me want to like, just right now I can feel my body changing. But do you know what I mean? Like people are like, beer's innocent, you know, unless in that there's this whole other side where everything else is terrible, worse than beer, you know? I want a whole book.
I'm working on the book. But I think actually compared to like beer or to the alcohol is like this whole tobacco cigarette thing. Because they're both just, you know, you could get them at the gas station, you can do this and that, you can, and you know, as kids you learn like you learn about the acceptance of that space, because mom and dad can get that and not be judged. And then also with cigarettes too. But remember candy cigarettes?
Oh
You know,
yeah. Oh
they were
yes.
giving out candy drugs,
Yeah.
to teach us.
Wait,
I was smoking candy cigarettes and it made me want to smoke
what?
cigarettes.
That's your generation. My mama wouldn't let me play with like that. My mama and my daddy, it's just like they'd be like, you I was like, you want to smoke cigarettes and you want to die. Like everything was just like death, you know. I smoked the first time I smoked a cigarette, actually, the first drug I guess I technically did was smoking a cigarette. And I went to my mom's backyard and I like lit the cigarette. It was so bad and I dropped it on like I remember I dropped it on the pavement, and when I went to go pick it up again, I like burned my hands, and I had like no way of smoke. I did not know how to smoke a cigarette. And then like years later, I'd be like smoking cigars, which I know cigars are terrible, but fuck, I love a damn good cigar. I feel like that's like the sexy do it once a year type of thing. But yeah, where the fuck did people go? Like, remember when they're just like, it's like when you're a kid or like when you're a teenager, like everyone's smoking like that one teen cigarette. It was like crushed camels. That was the thing they used to do in high school, crushed camels or American spirits. And they're like skewed to like the hipster or the teen, you know? I don't know.
No, I don't think we had the crushes when I was in high school, but people were straight up drinking or smoking Marlboro Reds. I remember seeing when people that were smoking Marlboro Reds, they called them cowboy killers. I'd be like, you hardcore. Chewing tobacco, that was really popular when I was in high school. I mean, I didn't do it, but did they do that in your high school? Chewing tobacco?
I feel like I don't. I mean, I grew so my high school was filled with like rich kids who like could afford like to just buy a bunch of liquor and have their parents drop it off at their house, or it's Hollywood, you know, like they didn't need the chewing tobacco because they had their like bougie cigarettes and like they had everything. Like the first time I remember going to a rich person's house in high school, I remember seeing like, you know, like the booze all over the table, and then thinking like, oh, I could have any drink I wanted. But me being the fucking really sweet kid was like, you got any juice? And they're like, no. They never had any real chasers. It was always just like all the alcohol you could drink. It was terrible. And you know, and even back then it's like you're so stupid, you don't realize you can like make a really cute drink and then like with juice and like keep drinking. They would just go hard and be like, so this is white, this is white, this is white. Let's just put them all together, you know?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hardcore.
Yeah.
Well, what was your first drug experience?
You know, I grew up in California where weed was like obviously I think California set off like has made weed culture. I think they created it. Am I right about that? Would you say?
That California created weed culture?
Yeah, like the way it is now. Yeah. Think about it. Like all West Coast, even hip hop, it's hip hop music, it's the Venice Beach lifestyle. Like the idea of like cool weed culture, I think is a very California thing. Like if I don't think of another place that's more associated with like the chronic.
Yeah,
You know
I
what
can
I
see
mean?
that. Yeah, the chronic, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
That's true.
so anyways, I say that because like, you know, I grew up with the Snoop Dogg's and the Dr. Dre, so I was apparently listening to Chronic right out the womb. Shout out to my mama. And I was like, ooh, yeah, and I was like, ooh, you know, and so I was always curious, like, what is the green leaf that I always see as a kid, you know? And as time gone by, like I never saw anyone smoke any weed. Like, it's crazy. Like I don't know if it was my parents or none of them. They never brought any of that stuff around me. So how you can remember your dad smoking weed, I can't. I don't have any childish, you know what I mean, memory of it. It was just never brought around. You know, in high school, the first sign I realized that weed was around was during lunchtime when people would go off campus. And they're like, oh, we're gonna go off campus. And I was like, okay. And they're like, you wanna come with us? And I was like, maybe like 14 or 15, and or like maybe like 15 or 16. But the point is like, I was like, ooh, okay. And it was the first time I realized like, oh, this is what we do off campus. So, like, you go off and you smoke weed. But it took me so long to observe it that when I finally decided to, I like planned it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go off campus and I'm gonna smoke weed with the cool kids. And it was basically like it was like basketball players, all the cool Black kids, and just like all the rich kids in this big circle in a parking lot. It might have been like 14, 15 people. Anyways, we're smoking in this parking lot, and I take maybe the tiniest hit in the world. I don't even know if it was a full hit because they had to teach me how to inhale it. And then we saw this like Jewish coach. I'm not going to say who it is in case he listens, but he worked at the school, and he was walking up the stairs, and I saw him, and I immediately, when I tell you, nigga, I ran so fast, there was probably a cloud of smoke behind me because I was like, I'm going to get in trouble. And I was high. So I was like walking, I ran onto Sunset Boulevard from school, high as fuck, towards the Tower Records Coffee Bean area, shout out. And I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my God, the school's gonna find out. My mom's gonna kill me. Nothing, it's not like the school. If I was never afraid of being suspended, y'all, I'm still afraid my mom's gonna kill me. Like, anyways, I'm fucking freaking out. I'm like, I didn't realize what the munchie thing was. So I'm in the Starbucks with my like $2, hoping that they'll sell me a Rice Krispie. And when I don't have enough money, I just take these little sticks of honey and I just start throwing them down my throat. Anyways, I went back to school, and it turns out the coach smokes weed with them. So there goes all my tripping for no reason. But I'm still emotionally really high, and it was my first time. So my mom was really hot, y'all. My mom parked the car, got out. I was like, Mom, get back in the car. They're like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, somehow we're just driving, and in the middle of the drive, I'm like, I'm gonna keep it cool. I'm not gonna say anything. I just bust out crying. I'm so high. I like fully broke down. I was like, I smoked weed and I'm so sorry. And my mom is like, this dumbass kid. Like, this kid can't even hide it, like most teens do. I could never hide it. Anyways, we went back home, and the reason why I think this part is funny is like, I had a real freak out. I thought a rat was crawling on me in my sleep, and as I like was passing out from my like high nap, I like looked under the bed and couldn't see anything. And I swear to God, y'all, I had been imagining there was a rat because we like had issues in the house. But my mom was like, you're just out of your mind. You're just high. You're high. I know the fact that that's when the rat problems actually started, because why would I be imagining that shit, Anyways, my mom made me feel bad and was like, you're a dumbass. And, now you have to sit here and watch Gone with the Wind or some fucking old ass movie. But I wasn't punished. I wasn't punished the way I thought I was supposed to be, because I think my mom saw me breaking down and was like, it's bad.
Yeah.
I didn't smoke till college from that, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, you were, after that experience, you were like, I'm gonna chill.
Yeah, I think I waited maybe realistically until like 12th grade or summer 12th grade. But no, think about drugs for I think me is like, I love drugs because I realize not just the weed, but really it's just like there are all these natural things that can help you understand your emotions and your feelings. There's a way to use drugs to do mental and psychological check-ins with yourself that are super healing, But back then it was just, let's do it because let's just get high, you know? Now I'm like, I take shrooms on Sundays because I'm like, let's just check in with God and the God in you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. I think that drugs are so important for us to help us shape our perspective and do a lot of that work inside. Even having a bad trip is something that can help change the trajectory of like your life, you know, having a good trip, like certain drugs and other activities like dancing and music and the arts and how integrative those experiences are when you're able to do medicine or drugs or whatever you call it, certain substances that take you to a space of euphoria, you know, especially if you have an understanding of like what your body can do and like how to do the thing and what you're doing and if you're safe doing it with the right people.
I found your tweet, or at least one of them that I really loved. If you're okay with, did you find it?
Yeah, which one?
Should I read it? It's from September 7th, 2000.
Yeah, that's the ones.
Listen, y'all, let me just put it out there for any older folks. Nothing is wrong with drugs. And you have children who need to hear that, because whether or not you want to hear it or not, they're going to be taking drugs, some sort of drugs within their future.
Yeah.
And you want to just say nothing is wrong with drugs, but certain drugs I don't feel should be taken. And you say it like personally, I don't feel should be taken. If anyone would have just said it like that, there's so many people who would go without issues, but because there was such a like it's wrong and all of them are bad, we have even worse issues with drugs because we can't recognize that people who take drugs, and this is for all people, I think we're all hurt people learning how to heal. So we need some type of drug anyways.
You're totally right. That's why that's why people have medicine and drugs, because we're coping. And it's like, and everyone has a judgment towards how others cope. We've been fed poison. We've been fed all types of crazy shit. And people are kind of just grasping at what they can do. So shout out to Uhuruverse, because Uhuru really put me in my place about that word addiction or addict, you know? Yeah. And it's really when I was in a space of mourning, and I had such a beautiful talk with him just about death and some of the losses that were occurring in my life because of fentanyl, you know, and drugs, you know, and losing people who are grieving. And, you know, he was like, what, you know, sugar's a drug. We don't judge people who drink nothing but soda pop, but then people have something to say about people who do, you know, cocaine and do other things. And that even that word addiction, like we shouldn't be calling people that. And like people are quick to not judge the ways that others bungee jump, you know? And I really appreciate Uhuru for that. And also, by the way, Fupu is fundraising for their new album. So if anybody can support, I'll put the link in our digest. But
and Fupu stands for "Fuck You, Pay Us," right?
Yeah, Fuck You Pay Us, which Uhuru, one of the founders of Fuck You Pay Us, really appreciated that.
I was trying to throw in what you wrote in this chat, but
I found it. Yeah, should I?
Okay, good. Yeah, please do read it.
Okay, so I wrote, I do drugs. All human beings deserve to do drugs safely. Drugs helped shape my perspective, helped me get through hard shit when I needed care and couldn't get it. I got out alive, and I believe you all deserve such too. We all do drugs. And remember, all drugs ain't powders and pills. Labeling fentanyl mass murder victims as overdoses and addicts admonishes, shames, and perpetuates judgment against users who got sabotaged product. Send all that smoke, energy, and accountability to the serial killer psychopaths willfully distributing tainted poison venom. Hold people in your circle accountable who label and center users as addicts, crackheads, junkies, tweakers. Divorce that judgmental rhetoric that reduces these victims, when most of them are angels that need care, support, purpose, justice, and shelter, emotional and physical. Remember, we have the right to do drugs. We deserve the right to put whatever we want in our bodies without risk of being poisoned. You have the right to safe shit that is clean. Stop discarding people's legacies by blanketing them as fucking addicts. It only takes one bad batch. And Big Pharma is the biggest drug kingpin in the world. Companies that
Facts.
thank you. Companies that manufacture fentanyl and opioids, hashtag Johnson & Johnson, are the biggest and need to burn. Boycott Johnson & Johnson products. They have been unrestrained for far too long. And dismantle the Drug Enforcement Administration. They ain't doing shit.
Wait, can I say the next one about the cartel?
Oh, yeah.
All right. And by the way, I'm gonna take on a voice in this because I think these next two are like my favorite ones. The United States government drug cartel says some drugs are good, but others bad. Drugs are drugs. None are more better than others. Until all drugs are legal, our bodies, minds, and friends will continue to die and be enslaved. The epidemic isn't drugs. It's pain and suffering. The epidemic is lack in a world that proves there is no need for such. The epidemic is antiquated colonial language and use of such that must be eradicated and divorced from our psyches, for it is the perpetuation of harm. I just want to snap. We need to put like some snap interludes for all this. Yet, this is where you know a million. I'm sorry. This is when you know a million.
I was going off.
It spiraled. Yet, y'all looking down on people who are actually free radicals, shamed for using outside of societal bounds. And if you are drinking alcohol, judging people who use drugs, you ain't about shit. You high on the white man's drug of choice and think because it's legal, you better. LOL.
I think that's all of them.
Okay, fine. Yeah, you're right. Dude, this whole entire thing needs to be like, we need to upload this. Well, first of all, can I ask? So tell me about, I mean, this was the summer of a lot of things going on, or at least the end of the summer, but you know, you have obviously been building on these words. So tell me about, you know, where they inherently felt they came from, or how you began to spiral.
I spiraled. It really happened with Michael K. Williams, talented brother who passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that it was for fentanyl, and I didn't like the way that the media was wording multiple fentanyl related deaths. I have loved ones who've died from that. I've had to check my own self about that language that I was even using. I mean, I keep seeing this. Like, I keep seeing the way that I feel like it's gaslighting the user as, oh, it's the drug user. Like, you shouldn't have been using drugs. But I'm like, that thing shouldn't have been in the drugs. It's not about the drug. It is about the fact that we have a Drug Enforcement Administration. We have a government whose job it is to keep us safe and to keep the shit clean. But not only do we have a Drug Enforcement Administration that distributes drugs, the biggest pimp slave cartel in the world, United States government, out here allowing a company like Johnson & Johnson to legally produce this thing, which I understand that people use fentanyl. I guess fentanyl has a use that's for pain, right? Like people who are in extreme pain, like there's fentanyl patches, there's like this space of fentanyl use that is, I guess there's a purpose, but I think that it's clear at this point that this thing needs to just be eradicated. Like, how many drugs have we seen and just disappear that have just disappeared because they quickly caught themselves and found out that this thing is not the thing. But yet people who get this in their stuff, they're demonized. Like, it's crazy to me. I'm like, this person was a victim of a system. These people are victims of a system. Everybody who's even on fucking drugs or is using drugs instead of actually receiving care is a victim of the system.
Facts. I also want to say on that point, like, you know, they're not here to defend themselves. They are victims, but to write their narrative as they couldn't win their battle with drugs when something killed them. You know, like that feels really, really, I mean, talk about a world that's got you fucked up. Can you imagine? This is what I think about constantly when I think about people who live a life being called an addict is, you know, we talk about imposter syndrome. Drugs are really this route of saying, I just want to feel loved by the world and fulfilled and understood, you know? And I think, and because they don't feel like they're good enough. And then you do drugs for a sense of finding healing and purpose. And sometimes, and I'll be honest, like, it doesn't matter what your route is. If you hit rock bottom and you made it out, maybe that was the purpose of doing those drugs. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. What hurts is like when you lose your battle or whatever they're calling it with that said drug. And then they're like, oh, well, they weren't strong enough, or like, like
they're an addict. They're just an addict. And then they're like, there's nothing about them.
Right. It's just, unless you're of some sort of fame, but like, you know.
But that's still not okay either, though.
That's fucked up. But I'm saying that's fucked up because, like, excuse my language, but also no. I think like these people who are capitalizing off of drugs, and then you have obviously this new system of the narrative that like drugs are more about the people than it is about the society that's responsible. You know, it's just like, it's murder. Like, just murder. It's murder.
Yeah, murder. Yeah.
I know it's like, to all people who are listening, like, I don't know, but like, if you think about it, like, it's just a different version of stabbing or shooting someone. You know, it's like putting someone down constantly to the point where you actually put the needle in their hand or whatever it is in their hand to kill them. And the thing is like, they weren't even trying to kill themselves. People who take drugs are just trying to find healing, find themselves. They're trying to dig deeper, right? You know, do you ever read like have you ever read like the book of like rock stars? Mm-hmm. Or okay, so I read what is it called? I'm gonna get his name wrong, but basically he's the guy who's the lead singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'll Google that as I'm saying it, but he did like when I say he did every drug, like there was like a point in where he was sniffing like cocaine and ants. It was a lot. Wow. But in his book, what's his name? Flea. Okay. The other one who wrote it, the other one who has a book is his name is Anthony Cletus. So actually I'm talking about Anthony. So anyways, he did so many drugs, and all of his ways of drugs had to do with, you know, some were for his childhood, some were for dealing with the music industry, some were because he, you know, like drugs can pull you apart and put you back together. And it's interesting because at the end of the book, he's like, wouldn't change anything. This is not a book. This is not a book to tell you don't do drugs. You know?
I think everybody needs to do some drugs. I think some people need to do more drugs. I think some people need to do less drugs. I think some people are doing the wrong drugs. I think because I don't think people have actually met their drug, which I'd actually like to say, like, maybe that's, you know, like you meeting your soulmate, you ain't met your drug yet, honey. You ain't met it yet because you scared, or because you stigmatized, or you're distanced, or you know, societally think all A, B, C, and D, you know, people haven't. I would have been a different person had I known that psilocybin was accessible, and it was probably better for me as a teenager, or any type of like psychedelic, you know. I think I would have been more geared toward that, but instead it was just, you know, alcohol, weed, ecstasy. But I never even really did ecstasy. It just wasn't, my boyfriend at the time was an ecstasy dealer. So the idea of that was like, it was too much because I was seeing him being messy about it and doing too much ecstasy, and I was not into it, you know? So I never got into the pill stuff. I also wanted to make sure that I didn't get pregnant and I could get the fuck out of Alaska. So I had to set some boundaries for myself because I was like, nope, I'm getting out of here.
I can't wait to read your book. I think your book cover should be like, oh my God, you're gonna write a book and then you're gonna do an interview with Whoopi about your book. I just saw it. We're gonna do it. It's gonna happen. You're gonna just be smoking a joint. One of the things I want to say about drugs, which is really, I think, important, is know your body. Know your body. I think
dose, set, and setting.
Wait, say it again.
Dose, set, and setting.
Dose, set, and setting.
Yeah, I've been reading about those spaces in the drug world. So you got to understand how to dose yourself and what your body is actually capable of.
Facts.
Like, right. So some people have a bad trip on weed or have a bad trip on mushrooms because they like did too much or they like
exactly
did what somebody else did. And people tend to run before they walk, you know? And
what's
then set is, well, let me see. Setting is the environment. I'll say that.
Which is everything. I mean, y'all,
energy.
Look, I'm all about setting when it comes to any drug, but let me just tell y'all something. Some of y'all is taking these drugs around people you ain't supposed to take drugs around. Ooh. And I'ma just tell you, listen, ain't nothing wrong with the drugs. Something's wrong with the people. You heard it here first.
Look, you ain't lying.
Look. Sometimes you be like, I really want to enjoy this drug, but you can't enjoy the person sober. So how are you going to enjoy them when you're on drugs? You know, like that's something that I truly feel like is something I already knew it just kind of growing up. My dad was like, don't take any drugs around these folks because if you get arrested, you know, they ain't gonna have your back, you know?
Yeah.
But then side note, like you also think about where we're at here and like, you know, we have there's the party. I mean, I'm in New Orleans, like it's a party community and drugs are at the party, but there's also something really beautiful about taking drugs with people who are just as intentional as you and who you're comfortable with versus like just the party scene. I don't know why drugs are just about the party scene when drugs, I think, are so much more beautiful and activating and healing when you're not around it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's facts. That's the perversion of it. I think it kind of goes into that alcohol thing, you know?
Yes.
Where people are pulling things into that space that are not really meant for that space. Like doing mushrooms alone versus doing mushrooms in like a gigantic crowd of drunk people.
Yeah.
But so set and setting is when referring to a psychedelic drug experience means one mindset, which is shortened to set, and the physical and social environment, which is the setting, which is pretty much kind of what you were just talking about. It's like, where's your mind at when you like you're gonna do the thing, and then where are you at? And then how much are you taking?
Yeah. So dose, set, which is mindset, and setting. Beautiful. Anyone who's listening to that, when you see your little white friends and they're doing their little drugs and you're doing your little drugs, you just have to think about it. And you can ask them, what dosage is this?
Please ask the dose. Please find out.
Oh my God, it's so important. Am I in the right mindset? You know, I didn't have the answer. My friend wanted to take some shrooms with me. I didn't have the answer of the dosage. So what I said was, and this is like the best and the most honest answer, is like, this is what I know my body needs. And I told them my weight. This is how much I'm taking right now. I don't know how much your body weighs, but this, like, you can have a discussion about it because no body's the same, you know? But if you can't, I have this whole thing about like understanding drugs as like, it's a communication with yourself, but who you're doing it, it's a real conversation with the person you're doing it, you know? You kind of have to really say like, well, this is what I'm planning on feeling when I take this, you know? Or this is what would make me feel safe. Would this make you feel safe? You know, like talk about it. Just talk, you know? So
Yeah, I also think people should communicate, or don't show off if you don't know. Don't just trust somebody when they just give you something and don't tell you what's in it or how much is in it. I think that there's a lot of this conversation or space that I hear of people who are getting in situations with people who are trying to set them up in a way
Yeah.
that's not cool. There's a big responsibility in offering somebody drugs. There's a
Yeah.
really big responsibility in offering anybody any substance. And also there's a
Facts.
responsibility in knowing who you're taking the substance from and who did that person get the substance from. Because
Mm.
I think people who are maybe more experienced drug users have certain relationships with their dealers. Go, really, I don't feel like I'm like looking back to think if I had to really track anything down, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't had that relationship like specifically to cocaine or anything like that. Like I've been able to like get it for people and shit, but I've never was like, I need this every weekend and I need to find, I have my person and all that some
Yeah.
people do have, but really find out what you're taking and how much it is, and just realize it's not a race, it's not a competition. Just always, I think, with the drug space, go at a pace that works for you. And it's always better to do less than, it's always better to go small, to do less. Unless you're just trying to quantum leap, then that's on you.
Yeah.
I've been calling everything a quantum leap lately because my dad was watching that show. And I was, when I was visiting Vegas, so it's like, dang, I forgot. This white man is jumping through all types of spaces and time.
Oof. Yo, I've been thinking about that in terms of like, I want to learn how to spiritually leap out of my body once in a while. And I think drugs, especially when it comes to shrooms and acid, certain drugs aren't being used or understood in the right way, especially when it comes to microdosing. Like we didn't really talk about microdosing. Like I have like my own little drug smoothie. And what I mean by that is like there's a mixture of things that I like to go through life with, you know? I already know like I take my vitamins. I'm fairly sober from alcohol. And by fairly sober, I really actually mean sober. It's just like I don't have a bad thing with it, you know? I smoke a little bit of weed, you know, but I don't I don't smoke every day. My main thing is the microdosing. I like it. I like microdosing with acid and mushrooms. I think if you're going through depression, especially if, as for this is, shout out to like the POC community, going through this mentality of being in white supremacy sometimes makes you lose your happiness. And it causes depression and it's tiring and it's not uplifting. And you know, I really love the idea of psilocybin and acid, like these forms being used to really help cope with that. You know, shout out to a friend of mine, their name is Ro, and they've been studying how like, or they've been using, you know, psilocybin as medicine. Is I wish there was the ability for the Black community to understand how psilocybin and acid used in microdoses could really help deal with white supremacy. And I have a friend who has kind of taught me that the taboo, like we're just now starting to get there in terms of the younger Black community, but when it comes to depression or bipolar disorder, or like there are ways in which microdosing can really cure that. And I love that research because I'm just like, there's so much possible in healing for the Black community, especially when it comes to like, you know, we're within the victims of being, we're victims of drugs. And when it comes to like, hey, there's a possibility that there might be actually something that can help you heal from certain traumas, it kind of gives me some hope in this idea that like, oh, it's not just me. Like, I mean, it isn't just me, but like the world is not just gonna like, there's no hope in, you know, like drug use. Like, I honestly don't think there's much hope in drug use unless it comes into the form of like, oh, this is going to heal you from your breaking downs, you know, your breakdowns or trauma, you know, because I think psilocybin is really good for dealing with certain levels of heavy trauma, you know? But that just may be me in my opinion. But in my experience, it's been really helpful, you know?
Yeah, it helped me when I was suicidal. Like if I hadn't have taken mushrooms or started taking mushrooms, I probably wouldn't be here. It's I think it's proven that it definitely is truly medicine. And I've had other conversations with folks who said like, yeah, like psilocybin needs to be in the hood. Like psilocybin, Black people need to get more access to psilocybin. I'm down to be that person. Like I'm really interested in getting more in that space. I'm down to like take that risk, to be honest, because I just think it's such an important space of medicine. And I think that also calling it medicine and not calling it a drug is probably helpful, because I kind of feel like the way you name something and talk about something to people who aren't familiar with it, like if it's like called a drug, then maybe it might seem like more scary.
That's true. Which is wild to me, you know? Because like Tylenol is a drug.
Well, yeah, but the white man makes that stuff. Like that's all some pharma stuff. Like, but it is a drug though. Tylenol is a drug. Like baby Tylenol. Like they make baby Tylenol. You know.
I know. And baby Benadryl.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
I mean, we are born in this world, and from birth we are inoculated with a whole bunch of shit all the time. So whatever you think that, whatever type of drug you think you ain't taking, you already have been taking so many drugs in your system. With even as with all the Robitussin and all that stuff, all the whatever, down to going to the dentist, down to, you know, all these vaccines, like, you know, polio, that's even another thing with the vaccine where I'm like, okay, I used to be anti-vax. My homegirl Natalia was like, honey, vaccines have saved my life. Shout out to Natalia. Natalia was like, it was a fair argument. And I got the vaccine, and your mother helped that space. Like your mom, Tasha, shout out to Tasha. Tasha saved hella lives with that, because we had everybody coming down to get the vaccine because of Tasha. So Black Mystic Company. And so, but she was like, yo, think about all the vaccines you already have inside you. I'm like, wait, never thought about it. And also one thing that made me think about that was like polio's making a comeback. Like a young boy just tested positive for polio.
Wow. I love lists. Like, here are all the medicines you should be taking, all the herbs. Like, you remember when they had grandmas and aunties that put, okay, here's all this, here's all that. Like, y'all need to make a list on like, this right here is like a no. This is a yes. This is a hell yes. You know, like my hell no is like, you know, alcohol, specifically like hard liquor and beer. My yes is weed and really like my like microdosing edibles, a little bit of edibles. And then my hell yes right now is shrooms and acid. What's yours?
My hell yes is for sure shrooms, psilocybin, love acid, and cannabis. I would like to go back into other stuff again. I don't know if I have like a solid, but my hell knows, because I have a middle space for everything, but except for I do have some hell knows. Like I would never do cocaine. I'll stay away from cocaine. I think I'm good on cocaine.
Yeah.
For the rest of my life. And I'm also good on Molly. I'm good on Molly.
I dosed in little Molly. I'm okay to I had a good old time in Mardi Gras on Molly.
Yeah, the reason why I stopped Molly was because I kept getting people having people tell me that Molly does something in the receptors that doesn't come back.
Oh fuck.
Like in terms of like, I don't know if it was, I don't want to butcher it, but something.
I'm gonna Google it.
It was enough for me to say I don't even want to play with it no more, because it was like more than one person telling me this, and I'm like, spirit is telling me this, like I need to not fuck with this. You know what I mean? When you're getting that information from different people and different times, but it's like about the same thing. I'd be like,
thank you for passing on that news. You hear that? Yeah. You passed on the good word.
Yeah, we want things that we don't want to lose certain parts of our brain or spirit. And I think that's a space with drugs. Is like I like to switch things out. And I think it just depends on where I'm at, how safe I'm at, who it's coming from, where like all of this stuff where I'm like, this seems like a fitting time to eat a steak or have a thing or do it whatever. But not I don't eat steak all the time, but I will not say no to a good steak. Thank you for joining me on this and being down to talk about it. I feel like we could come back to this another time because I feel like it's like a through line.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I still want to talk more about media portrayal. You know, I'm okay to say it here, and you know, if anyone's listening, I'm not okay with media's portrayal on drugs, and that goes for every single show and movie, and that includes Snowfall, and that includes everything from like everything from like The Wire to Snowfall. I look back on now and just think about how fucking horrible, how horrible it is that these white narratives, which don't really seem white because they have people of color starring in them, are rewriting the narrative of history of Black folks and drugs. And we've never had a real control over our experiences, with the exception of like, there are certain films and you know that has talk about that are directed by Black folks, and I'm not just saying Spike Lee, but like I know that it's out there, but it's just it's the most provocative things you can think of in terms of drug use, and Black people have been created by white people, and it's an act of violence, and I'm not for it. And I think like Black people think it's all cool because we have something that talks about drug life, and we have like the Paid in Fulls, and yeah, okay, those things are sure, hip hop culture's out there. But then when it comes to like shows like I thought about, there's a movie called The Mexican.
Oh, that movie.
Love and drugs. Remember that? Like that was out. That was a movie about drugs. Narcos was a whole movie that was said about Hispanic and Hispanic culture, but it was written, most of that was written by white people.
The Wire.
The Wire was written by a white man.
The same one who wrote Treme.
Yeah, I know.
Which I'm like, shouldn't a Black person be writing Treme?
I know.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, okay. Yeah, it's on and popping.
We probably need to do drugs part 2.
I think we might just, what is imposter syndrome drugs? I think drugs helped me get out of my imposter syndrome.
Facts.
I mean, if it wasn't for mushrooms.
Yeah, drugs help me be vulnerable. Keyword for it. You know, what do drugs do? Drugs teach you how to be real and vulnerable. If you're not ready to be vulnerable, then yeah, don't do drugs. But if you're ready to be vulnerable and be real, be real.
But if you need to be vulnerable and you don't know what that feels like, take mushrooms.
Yeah, for sure.
They make me cry.
I have a message to viewers, because I feel like we didn't have any like conversation ends for like our podcast, which is like, you know, if you're a viewer, I just kind of want you to be like, I'm proud of the medicine I take. Just say it. If you can admit it, I'm proud of the medicine I take, because that's a big thing. Like, I think we're going into this idea of like drugs, but you just said it, it's medicine. I'm proud of the medicine I take, and I'm proud of me.
I want to say, yeah, I think I'm proud of the medicine I take, but I also want to say that it's also, I'm conscious of the medicine I take. I'm responsible for the medicine I take. I understand my dosage of the medicine I take, and I'm going to be aware and conscious within myself if this medicine is taking me.
Facts. Ooh, okay. With that, we did it. We did it.
Because you can't let that thing control you. And so back to the narrative thing, yeah, we'll wrap this up, but like those narratives that you brought up are really important, because it's allowing them to puppet us as the forefront or the face of drugs and a movement, and like further justify the violence, the illegalness of it, the taxation, all of those spaces, while they're over there with Johnson and Johnson and Big Pharma, we're pumping out fentanyl and pumping out all types of crazy stuff. But then you got propaganda machines like Snowfall and all these things written by white folks.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It just doesn't. It just doesn't add
doesn't
up.
sit right.
We're
It
not the
doesn't sit
face
right.
of drugs. We're really not the face of
Well,
drugs.
and we need to play the Chronic, and for the next episode.
Oh, I can't. Dre's canceled.
Oh yeah, that's right. You know what's funny? I write 90s show right now, so I'm missed in the Dre, but I've been watching way too many YouTube videos. Oh my god. I'm glad we're not in the 90s, y'all. But that's a whole other topic. That's a whole other topic.
90s was barbaric.
It's a whole other topic. It also brings us to the part in which we go, look, it's not you that's fucked up. It's the world.
The world.
And we're just sitting here talking about it, Imposter Syndrome Survivors Club, where we know that you can do what you want to do and what you need to do to help you feel real.
No judgment.
Help you feel full. No judgment. We ain't
No
judging
judgment.
you.
Nope.
And with that said, I'm gonna lead us out with Galvin DeGraw. I don't wanna be anything other than what I've been trying to be, baby. All I gotta do is keeping me in my peace of mind. I'm tired of looking out something what I gotta do for who I'm supposed to be. I don't wanna be anything other than me. Shout out to Galvin.
Hey! Shout out to you.
Anyways, I'm grateful. I appreciate you, Amelian. I love you.
I love you too. Appreciate you. And until next time.